So, you want to build a shop, but you don't know where to start or really what to do. We're going to cover that on today's video and more.
Now, the next thing you're going to have to do
overall, I want to put overall on the nipple top and this switch. I'll show you what it looks like.
tighten down, leveled, and installed. I think they look pretty darn good.
Hello, I'm Daniel, and I want to welcome you to the first working way around. I have it set right now at 1080 out of the valve cover, and when it all crap coming out, that's not worth paying the kind of money I did. Now that I have my shop complete, I feel like I'm in a better position to be able to tell you what you should do or what you shouldn't do when building your shop. Now, I had many questions and many concerns when I first began to think about building a shop or have one built. I worried because I'm not an electrician. I really had no experience whatsoever with concrete, no experience with dirt work, no real experience at all with building any kind of building. So what I did is I did some research, and when I do research, I consider all the avenues that are available to me, be it money-wise or is it just possible to do with what I have. Now, after many hours, days, weeks, months, and even years of pondering exactly what I wanted, it came down to I had to pick a size shop that I wanted to build. And what I came down with was the basic 30 by 40 shop with 2 roll-up doors and 1 walk-in door. Now, I didn't know where I was going to put the doors. I didn't know where I was going to put the shop exactly in the yard. So I got out and I just measured it off. And I considered my driveway placement, where the doors would land at the end of the driveway, where my walk-in door would be according to where my driving doors were, and how easy would it be to access the shop from the driveway or from the house. Now, originally, my doors were not placed where they are now, because once I considered where the door was, which was going to be about right here at the corner of the building, I decided to go ahead and move it to this corner of the building because it's easier access from my house and my driveway, and plus I wouldn't have to pour concrete on the side of the building in addition to the concrete slab. It just was not going to work out correctly putting the door on the side of the building. So I put it on the front of the building. Also, you need to consider what is in the ground or under the ground where you're going to place the slab for your building. Now, my particular situation, I had some conduit with electrical wiring running underground to a old light pole that used to be here that we took down several years ago, but also it went out to a little portable wooden shop that I store like my lawnmower and my lawn tools in. So first thing I had to do was go dig up that line and just move it, or you can just completely eliminate it, and then once you have your shop built, you can run power from your shop to your little building like I'm going to do. The next thing I had to move, we have DSL service here in our home. I don't know about everybody else's home across the United States, but in Texas, 9 times out of 10, the electrical meter is either on the side of the house or on the back side of the house, where normally you don't see it from the highway. And in my particular case, my electrical meter is in the back of my house, and that's also where my DSL line runs to, right next to it. So what I had to do is I had to dig up part of my backyard to, one, locate the DSL line, which is just a small, thin cable. And then I had to slowly, carefully dig up the entire line from my home to the other side of my driveway and relocate it. Or you can just bury it even deeper than it is when you find it. Something else you want to consider is drainage or the foundation where it's going to go. Does the water pool in the area that you're going to put your foundation, or are you going to have to backfill it with dirt and rock? Now, in my particular case, I got out and started scraping up the dirt, scraping up the grass to get to the dirt, and found that you can't really see it, but it had quite a bit of a grade going downward away from my driveway that you really couldn't notice until you brought out like a laser level. So what I had to do, first I put my stakes out in the yard, and then I called the guy that I was going to get to do the concrete. He brought out his laser level, put it up, and determined there was quite a bit of slope away from my driveway that I was going to have to backfill with dirt and rock. So the next step, what you're going to have to do is go ahead and begin your dirt work. If you have a pretty level area in your yard you're going to place the shop, the dirt work's not going to be that big of a concern. All you're going to want to do is make sure the area where your concrete is going to go is level as possible. So when they put up the boards around where they're going to pour the concrete, then they won't have to adjust them very much to get you a level slab. Your very next step is going to be actually finding someone that will be able to do the concrete work that you're requiring. Now, I went out and searched over a couple of years to try to find people that really, one, was interested in doing this small of a job, and two, that would not charge me an arm or a leg to pour the concrete. Now, I had estimates ranging from $5,200 to over $8,000 just to pour a 4-inch slab. And talking with the people, they just really weren't interested in doing a small job like this, because there were huge jobs pouring huge concrete slabs for houses and such where they could actually make a whole lot more money in about the same amount of time. So what you can do is what I did. I got on Facebook Marketplace, which that's a really good alternative to locating people, that really need work. So I found a crew locally, then that's all they do is concrete work. And this gentleman came out and gave me an estimate. I was quite pleased with the estimate, told him let's do it. So he came out with his guys, set up the forms for the concrete, checked to see how much dirt, if my dirt was level, if I needed to add more, which I had to add a little bit more. And then once I had it where he said it was good, he came out, called the concrete trucks, and he came out and poured the slab for me and finished it out like I wanted it. Now, this particular area is quite imperative to get correct. Your slab must be level and it must be square. If it's not level and not square, you're going to have major problems, and you may even be turned down by the building company that you hire because it is not level and square. So what I did, just in case, instead of getting my building 30 by 40, the building slab 30 by 40, what I did is I got 30 foot 6 inches by 40 foot 6 inches to give me a little leeway. And I'm glad I did, because the concrete guy, although he did an excellent job on the slab, he got it square on the front and the back, but he did not get it square on the sides. So that 6 inches saved my butt big time. It's just a little bit of insurance, plus, you'll have something for, a little edge around your building. You can build up the dirt and have water run off correctly away from the building. And in the end, it will work out a whole lot better than trying to, get rid of puddles around your building. Now, one of the questions I get pretty regularly from different people that have watched my original video about my building when I first had it built, was about the concrete and why I preferred textured concrete over smooth concrete. And I've got the link right above at the very top of this video, and down in the video description you can go watch it, and you can see where I show you the different things that I've done with the building. And I give a little explanation why I did it this way, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the full explanation why. Put simply, a smooth slab mixed with oil, water, grease residue is very dangerous. It is a slip hazard. It also creates a problem, like if you're pulling a vehicle in while it's raining outside and the person's pulling the vehicle in a little bit too fast, you may come in the front door and you may make a door out the back side of the shop. You may, drive it straight on through and not mean to, because the vehicle slid. Now, I don't pretend to be an expert on concrete or the paint or what you should do. You're going to have to make your own mind up. Now, if you want to go with an epoxy paint on the floor, and that means you want that paint that looks like polished glass once you put it down and it's nice and shiny, then you're going to have to get a polished or a smooth surface on your concrete. And when you get that surface, you're going to have to etch it, and then you can apply your paint directly to the concrete. And once it cures, it's going to be nice and shiny, but it may or may not stay. And I don't want to go into that too far. There's plenty of videos on YouTube showing you where they put down this epoxy paint, came back 2 weeks, 3 months, whatever later, and the stuff is peeling up. Or it's marred so bad, it looks terrible. And what I used on mine was this Rust-Oleum floor and garage paint. And what it is a more or less flat gray, light gray paint. And I applied 2 full coats on this slab 30 days after the slab was poured. I made sure it was completely cured, and I got out here and painted it in the hot Texas sun. And the advantage that gave me is once I painted it and it dried, for a week out in the hot Texas sun, I knew it was dry, I knew it was cured, and I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. Now, if where you're at is cold, or if it's rainy, real damp outside, high humidity, you're going to have to wait till it warms up, and you're also going to have to wait until the humidity goes down before you can ever paint your slab. Otherwise, if you don't let your slab dry out really good, the water's going to start coming up out of the slab, and it's going to make your paint peel. Now, this slab, so far so good. It's been excellent. I have no hot tire pickup. Not even a sign of hot tire pickup on my slab. And I've driven my truck straight in here right off the highway after about a 38-mile trip. And I have no problems whatsoever with this paint on the floor, like they do on these epoxy paints that you see. I've watched videos trying to figure out, like you do, like everybody else does. They get on YouTube, see what everybody else has been doing, and then go from there. And I've seen these people, they put the paint down, drive the car on there 3-4 weeks later, and it picks up the paint as they back the car out. And that's just not acceptable, especially for what that paint cost. Once you have your concrete floor poured, your slab poured, and it's cured or it's curing, the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a building, and you want to find one that you're happy with. You need to sit down and think, how many roll-up doors do I need? Where am I going to place them? What about my walk-in doors? Do I want windows? How big roll-up doors do you want? Now, at first, I was looking at 8x8 doors, and came to the sudden conclusion that they are not even near wide enough, to safely get my truck in, much less a car. So I went with 10 by 10 roll-up doors on mine. Another thing you need to consider is how tall do you want the walls on the shop. Now I got 12-foot walls on my shop, and you have to have minimum 12-foot walls to put, even the slightest vehicle lift in the shop. Now if you go with anything less, you're not going to be able to raise that vehicle up high enough to be able to do any work under it, or you're going to hit the crossbars in the ceiling. Once you figure out which shop you want to go with, go ahead and give the rep a call. Tell them, this is the size shop I want. You need to tell them the measurements, where you want the doors, which side of the shop you want the doors. You'll have to give them all that information when you order it, so they'll know exactly, how to weld the pieces together at the factory. So when they just come out, they just put the shop up, and it's, it's basically prefabricated. So once you have your shop built, the next thing you're going to have to tackle is electrical. Now, again, I am not an electrician at all. Before this, I did not try to mess with anything that had to do with wiring, AC, anything. Basically, because if you wire it up wrong, you're going to let out what they call the magical smoke. And once you let the magical smoke out, it's not ever going to work again, and you'll have to start all over. So let me show you where I started on my building. Now, before you ever start wiring your building, you're going to have to call your local electric company and have a representative come out, and you're both going to have to determine if you want the wiring coming to your shop underground or overhead. Now here you can see the little box there, little gray box right in front of us. That is where my electricity comes in to my home and to my shop. Now it is underground wiring, and that is a totally different situation than overhead wiring. What I would suggest is, once you determine which route you want to go, contact an electrician and find out what kind of codes that you're going to have to meet, if you're going to have an electrician that is certified in the state where you live do the work or not. Now, fortunately, I live out in the county in Texas, and where I live, I don't have to have a certified electrician do the work. I can do it myself. However, the local electric company, which is SWEPCO, has their own requirements that must be met. And again, you're going to have to contact the electrical company and have the rep come out and explain to you all the requirements that you're going to have to meet. Otherwise, you're going to do the work and you're going to find out, like I did, that you didn't do exactly what you were supposed to. And you may just have to go through and dig up the electrical lines in your yard that you laid because they were not 3 foot down in the ground as specified by SWEPCO or the company that you have service with. And you really don't want to do that, because it costs you time and money in the long run, and if you had to go through what I went through, you'll never do that again. I ended up spending almost 36 hours straight trying to correct the errors that I made once I found out they would not hook up the electrical service to my shop unless I corrected them. Now here's where I started. I purchased a electrical box, and I'll have this particular electrical box down in the video description and where you can get one. And as you can see, I like overkill. I've got enough spots for breakers in this electrical box. I will never run out of breaker rope. And that was a major concern. Can I get a box big enough for all the things that I would ever want to wire up in this shop, be it overhead lights, be it electrical plugs? Would I be able to run my air compressor? What if I wanted to add a welder? What if I wanted to add 2 welders? What if I wanted to add in machinery in the shop? You know, it's unlimited what you can actually add to your shop, except for of course you're limited by space. But do you want to run outside lights for security? Do you want a security system? Do you need to run power from your shop to another little shop to power it? You got to think about these things ahead of time so you can plan. And I just, when I found this box, perfect, came with breakers, the whole thing was less than $200, and it was right up my alley. Like I said, I like overkill. I don't see a problem with overkill. In the long run, it could save your butt. So the first thing I did, I went ahead and the guy that built my shop left me some of this square tubing that he was just going to throw in the scraps. So what I did is I framed up for my electrical box. I know it looks a little bit weird, but there's a reason why it's like that. Now inside you have an electrical box. Outside you have a meter box. And on the inside of your electrical box is at the top of this one in particular, some it's in the bottom, is a port that goes through that you feed your electrical wires through to the outside meter box, and where you can hook it up to the meter box. Well, when you mount it to the building, you're going to have a mounting surface on the inside of the building for both boxes, the inside box and the outside box. So this particular configuration, I was able to attach it to one of the beams and get it exactly where I wanted it, and I was able to mount my inside box and my outside box to it with very little problem. Now the next thing you want to consider is the type of wire you want to run and your conduit. Now you have plastic conduit and you have metal conduit. How much trouble do you want to go through to put the conduit in down to your electrical boxes from your breaker box? Now I quickly determined I did not want to be in here for hours bending metal pipe in order to put in all my electrical around my shop. As you can see, if you look in the top corner of the walls, I've got quite a bit in here and quite a bit of turns and curves that just would be a complete pain to try to accomplish with metal. Also, you're going to have to figure out your conduit for your overhead lights. Now, where I put my conduit in, it's only on one side, and it's directly overhead and on one end of the lights. And I use those T's, the T boxes, that way I can easily access the wiring to the light, wire it up, stick it in the box, and put the cover on it. And what I've done also, I went with these LED lights, and I got these LED lights on Amazon. I'll put a link down in the description for those. I got 10, they're not quite 8 foot, but 10 of these lights for less than $200. And I've got 8 on the ceiling in my shop, which lights this place up great. But then I added 2 more to light up the engine bay when I have the hood up on the vehicle. And I've got those wires separately to a wall plug. Also, you're going to want to consider putting lights on the ground next to your bays. So, just in case you have a lift and it blocks that light off, you'll have light down here at the bottom, at the floor level, that'll shine up underneath of the car once you have the car up in the air. Something else I want to show you, you see people, they wire up, electrical wires to each other in the boxes and things, and they use twist locks. They basically twist the wire together and put a twist lock on it or a wire nut, And that's what they do. I didn't do that on any of this stuff. None of my wires are twisted. What I ended up purchasing was these at my local hardware store. I can't get it to focus too well. There we go. And the wire pushes in to these and locks. And once it locks in there, you're not getting it back out. These work great. And these were worth, every cent that I paid for them, which was not very much. I think I got 100 of them for about $8 at one of the home stores. So I highly suggest get you some of these here and bypass the wire nuts. Now your electrical conduit's going to have to be a Schedule 40 rigid PVC non-metallic conduit. And on my conduit, I decided instead of 1/2 inch to go with a 3/4 inch conduit. Now this 3/4 inch conduit will give you the room that you need to feed the wires around your building. If you go with 1/2 inch, you're going to find out really quickly that if you have multiple wires, let's say 6 wires or more, you're not going to be able to feed those wires through there successfully without breaking loose the conduit and forcing the wires through the conduit. So what you want to do, first thing off, you want to go ahead and measure off the distances between your breaker box and your outlets. Once you measure those off, go ahead and put it down on paper. If you have to draw it out a picture, go right ahead. You're going to have your distances up to where you're going to route your conduit and over and back down for each wall plug. So once you have all those measurements for every single wall plug, then what you're going to do is you're going to add all those together, and that's going to give you an idea just how much conduit you're going to have. And of course, when I calculated mine, as you can see right over in the corner by that shelf, I had 2 sticks left over because I used every single bit of every stick that I could in order to save some money on it. So some of them I just pieced, 3 or 4 pieces together and made one good stick instead of just throwing those pieces away and going to a whole new stick. Now for the wiring, I know everybody's heard Romex. Romex this, Romex that. You hear people throwing that around about, wiring up something AC electrical. This is not Romex. This is what's called THHN wire. And it is, I believe this is a 12 gauge wire that I purchased. It's got like a plastic coating over it. And I went with this instead of Romex, which is like 3 or 4 wires inside of a thick plastic cover. I went with this instead because it is much more friendly to route through your pipe than Romex would be, and you can get so many more wires in the pipe than you can with Romex. Plus the Romex was quite more expensive. This stuff here was about, I think it was about $50 a spool. Romex, my goodness, it would have cost me a couple of $100 just to run Romex through this building. Plus I'd have to increase the size of the piping just to get the Romex routed where I needed it. Now, when wiring your building, I would suggest following nationally recognized color coding for your wires. Now, black is going to be your hot leg or your hot lead. Green or bare copper is going to be your ground. And white is going to be your neutral. And if you follow these codes, someone coming in behind you working on something else will know generally what you've done. What we'll do is I will show you on one of the outlets that I wired up just how it goes. It's not very difficult, and if you think you might have some difficulty, I'm going to add a link down in my description of the video that goes to a help section for AC electrical wiring. Now I've taken the cover off of one of my electrical sockets to show you how it's wired. It's just simple wiring. There's 3 wires coming into the box: the black wire, the green wire, and the white wire. Now on the back side of this socket, it's marked on the sockets normally what is what. But as you can see, the black wire or the power wire is going to the gold colored screws. The white wire, which is the neutral, is going to the plain silver colored screws. And the ground wire, which is green, goes down to a lug at the bottom of the socket. And that's just a simple wiring up of an electrical socket. Also, what you're going to have to get is what's called a wire pull or a fish tape. What this does is you attach the wire to this fish tape and you pull the fish tape back through the pipe that you run your conduit pipe, and you can pull the wires through the entire length of the pipe instead of having to fight to push the wire through it. You just attach it here, pull it back, and then your wires ran. Now, how to use a wire pull? It's pretty simple. All it is you feed the wire in the wire pull into your conduit, and it comes out at the other end. Once it comes out, you're going to hook your wire to the wire pull here, and you're going to tape it up really good so when it's pulled, it won't come loose. So all you're going to do is you're going to route this wire pull all the way through your conduit in sections, hook it up, and then you're going to pull the wire back through the conduit to where it comes out where you want it to land. You can get this particular unit, I think, came from Home Depot, but I found Harbor Freight has a long version and a short version. Now, after experiencing what I did, routing my wire, I would get the long one, and I would also get the short version of it, because you'll have runs that you won't be able to do anything with the long one, and you'll want a short one so you don't have to fight with it to get the wire, ran where you need it to run. Once you figured out about how much wire you need, and once you figured out about how much conduit you need, you're going to have to figure how many boxes you need and what type of boxes do you need. Do you need a single gang box, or do you need a 2-gang box? Now, single gang box is going to have 2 outlets in it. A 2-gang box is going to have 2 separate outlets in it, or four plug-ins. I went ahead and put 4 at my workbench because, I do a lot of stuff at the workbench by itself, so I may need a couple of 2 or 3 things hooked up, my radio or whatever. Also, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to figure out how many T's or elbows that you need for routing your wire in the conduit. Now, example of an elbow is right there above that speaker. There's an elbow in the corner to make that corner. Also, I've got these multiple T's. I'll zoom in for you. I have T's at the top, and those T's have openings that you can open up, and you'll be able to connect the wires, to the main wire. You can connect the wires and run it down to the outlet. And the same way with all of them except for the very end, which I have another elbow that turns down. Now calculate how many boxes you need, how many outlets that you need, how many elbows, how many T's, how many wall plug-ins you're going to need. Just basically walk around the shop, doing your figures. Of course, you're going to have some electrical box connectors, which is basically a connector that fits in the box that you slide your pipe in. That way you can come out to a elbow and go straight up, routing your electrical wiring. One of the last things that I did in the shop was, I plumbed everything for air. I put in my air compressor and mounted it to the concrete. Then I ran, the 240 wire from the air compressor over to my box. And then I went in and installed this rapid airline system. And it's routed on the back wall of my shop all the way around to the other side. And I've got it over here on this side. Now this is the $200 Rapid Air half-inch line system. Now they make a 3/4 inch line system, and then they make a 1-inch line system. I went with half-inch because this is not an industrial operation. I don't need mass volumes of air. And at most, maybe 2 people possibly could be working in here using air, highly unlikely, but it will support 2 people running air. You can see this is one of the outlets that comes with the kit, and it attaches to the main line. It goes up in T's and goes left and right. Now coming off the air compressor, I have the Rapid Air regulator, filter, and dryer, and it goes right to my air lines. Now what this does is keeps trash out of the air lines. It helps filter out of the water from getting in the air lines and drawing it into your air tools. But also you can turn this knob here on the top and you can regulate your air down from, let's say, 120 psi to a working pressure of 90 psi. All in all, the planning and hard work has really paid off for me. I had someone pour the slab for me. I had a company build my building for me, which is also down in the links below. But everything else I did myself. The painting, the electrical, the airlines, all of it. And I'm quite happy with it, quite pleased with how it came out. Now, if you have any other questions or comments, please put them down below the video description. If you can't find some of this stuff that I'm showing you on video, just send me a message or just ask a question where you can find it. I'll do my best to hook you up, see if I can find it for you. This is Daniel with Boss C351 Productions. Thank you for watching my video.